It's a Phoenix King countdown. Let's begin.
Villain? Am I not?
Villains from Final Fantasy are very hit or miss. They're either awesome or horrible. Lots of villains of the franchise have had their fair share of hate, like X-Death and Necron, but for the sake of originality, I'm giving this spot to Zan from Final Fantasy III. Zan is by far the most unoriginal and overall worst villain in the Final Fantasy franchise, at least in my opinion. His motives are shallow, driven only by a yearn to live forever. His personality is extremely vague and very forgettable. We have hardly any idea who he is, what he can do, or why he's trying to destroy the world, even after he's defeated. Seriously, the last game starred an emperor who conquered the living world and hell itself. Zan's not exactly a bad villain per se, but by Final Fantasy standards, he's just awful. But the battle with him is equally bad. His attack pattern basically makes healing spells useless, and the fight itself only lasts about 6 turns due to his attacks all being ridiculously powerful. It doesn't even take any real strategy to beat him either. Just wail away at him with strong physical and magical attacks until he eventually dies. And after you defeat him, oh, you gotta be kidding me!
Thou art a villain.
Sticking with Final Fantasy for a moment, we have a somewhat obvious choice, Kefka Palazzo. Yeah, this guy might get a bit too much attention from us gamers and countdown artists, but at least it's for a good reason. First off, let's look at his personality. Well, it's kinda hard to describe, but that outfit says it all. Crazy, random, completely unpredictable, yet somehow intriguing. This makes for a very memorable character. Now let's look at his actions. The main thing that sets Kefka apart as a good villain is that he actually succeeds in what he sets out to do. Destroy the world and become the god of magic. Spoiler alert. This is because he always thinks ahead and plays mind games with the heroes. His best work in that department was probably the scene where he managed to convince the entire party that Celes Cher was a traitor. Next, as the final boss of Final Fantasy VI, he's certainly no pushover. His Fallen One attack is very devastating, and the battle itself is extremely symbolic and memorable, although it would take way too long to describe. Lastly, his battle theme, Dancing Mad, is epic and perfectly fleshes out Kefka's insanity. However, despite all of this, I find Kefka to be just a tad bit overrated. He's still a good villain, no doubt, but he can be defeated with one hit in Final Fantasy VI, and Dissidia diminished a lot of his credibility. At least to me, anyway. Shame. He was once known as a menacing and threatening psychopath, but nowadays, he's pretty much defined by one word. Smack!
Villain? Am I not?
If you've seen my worst countdown, which most of you have, then you would know that I don't like Eraser Djinn's role as a villain in Sonic and the Secret Rings. But I feel that I should explain a little more. Eraser Djinn was originally the genie from the story Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. His goal was to destroy the Arabian Nights book, and as a result, he committed his fair share of dastardly deeds. So, he was imprisoned inside his lamp until he could grant the wishes of 1,000 people. Because of all those wishes, he grew a new hatred for humanity, and began to grow his plans to eventually take over the human world as well as the Arabian Nights book. So I guess his motives are more reasonable than I said they were. Still, they are pretty shallow and are more of an excuse for the plot than anything. When you first encounter Djinn, he boasts that he is going to search for the 7 World Rings, a set of artifacts that open the pathway between the storybook world and the human world. Hold on a second. If Shara came to Sonic through the book, then couldn't Eraser just do the same thing? And then at the end of the game, Sonic just runs around, and then he finds a portal back to the human world. Why didn't Eraser find this? Anyway, he convinces Sonic to go after the rings himself, and Sonic does just that. After all this, Eraser reveals his true intentions to Sonic and tries to kill him to open the gateway. Because, you know, the Collector of the Rings has to be sacrificed. Yeah, probably should have mentioned that before. Shara puts herself between them, killing her off, putting her and Djinn off balance, transforming him into Alflela Walela. After you defeat Alfredo Layla, well, you know what's coming.
I shall not be defeated. If you defeat me, I will simply return again and again. I am immortal. I cannot be vanquished. Tara, I know you're there. Please stop him. We can start over. The two of us. I swear it. The world is mine. Why?
Quick shout out to Josh Scorcher and Peanut3423 for letting me use one of their jokes.
Thou art a villain.
When you look at the Zelda franchise, you've got a lot of contenders for this list, like Majora, Zant, and the king of them all, Ganondorf. However, I'm gonna have to give this one to Girahim from Skyward Sword. Now, without spoiling anything for people just now getting into Zelda, Girahim reminds me of Kefka in a lot of ways. They're both crazy as hell, neither of them ever give up, both of them actually succeed in their endeavors, and both of them offer a great battle. However, I prefer Girahim to Kefka for a number of reasons. For one, Girahim's motives and goals are much clearer than Kefka's, making you understand him as a character. Second, his insanity is fleshed out much better in retrospect to a villain, and that tongue, making him strangely menacing in a way, unlike Kefka, whose personality is more random than anything. Lastly, the battles with him. He even has some great villainous dialogue at later points in the game. Girahim is just one of those villains that you can't help but like, but at the end of the day, striking him down with your Master Sword is a great feeling of accomplishment. Oh yeah, I just killed a Demon Lord! That's what you get for kidnapping the #1 love interest! Ugh!
Villain? Am I not?
Yeah, this should be no surprise. Almost every Countdown artist has ranted about this guy at some point, so I figured it was my turn. Let's start with his voice.
So much hostility!
That voice is like nails on a chalkboard.
I'll relish every moment, every second of this kill. May you savor your death as well!
Wait, doesn't that sound familiar?
May you savor your death as well!
I shall not be defeated.
Huh. Jasper Bat Jr. is basically a spoiled brat who sends his henchmen to do all the dirty work for him. In fact, the only thing Jasper has really ever done on his own is climb to the top of the UAA. And even that was mostly due to his supply of expensive and overly powerful assassination tools. Speaking of which, let's talk about the fight against him. This duel to the death has 3 phases and can be summed up in one word: insulting. The first form insults your intelligence by being pathetically easy and leaving you confused when his health stops going down. I mean, come on. How many people honestly made it through this first form without looking up that you're supposed to lose a clash with him in order to move on? Yeah, because everybody expects to have to lose during a battle, right? The second form is just as insulting, though for a completely opposite reason. It's relentlessly cheap to the point of being abominable. His attacks are too fast, your recovery is too slow, he can teleport around the room and attack you while you are recovering or in the middle of a combo, and he has the worst one-hit KO move in the game. Finally, the third form. A balloon. Yeah, the only thing shocking about this guy being on the list is that he isn't #1. Well, despite being one of the most hateable characters in existence, he's not the worst villain ever. Trust me on that. He's very good at what he does, even if it is rage-inducing. And at least he can put up a fight, albeit an annoying one. But the other villains on this list? Not so much.
Thou art a villain.
What? Why is this guy on your best villains list? Is this a joke? An error? Did you show us the wrong number card or something? None of the above. I honestly believe that Dr. Ivor Robotnik, or Eggman as he's now called, is a very good villain. Sure, he has some pretty lame battles in the classic Genesis games, and he has an annoying speech pattern, but ever since he hit 3D, he's been a force to be reckoned with. He started out with a yearn to conquer the world and build his very own amusement park. But nowadays, he's motivated by revenge against Sonic. His plans have been some of the most diabolical and ingenious in history. From awakening and harnessing the energy of the ultimate dark power source, to burning the power of an alien race to fuel a mind control beam, to releasing a transmutated child to conquer the world, to outsmarting Tails and launching Sonic into space in a self-destructing capsule, to going back in time to undo all of his previous failures. Man, will he ever run out of ideas? Also, Eggman is responsible for some of the most epic robots ever created, including Death Egg, Metal Sonic, the E-Series, and the release of Shadow the Hedgehog.
You turned into a big-time villain, Doctor!
But unfortunately, he still can't put up much of a fight on his own, which is why he can't be any higher on the list. But still, this guy is way underrated as a villain. His well-developed motives, his ingenious plans, and his never-ending persistence put him at the number 3 spot.
Villain? Am I not?
Do you consider that a victory? You're merely delaying...
Wow. Just wow. Lord Lucian Fairfax from Fable 2 has got to have one of the worst final battles in existence. That alone gives him credibility enough to be put on this list, but he gets worse! Throughout his whole life, Lucian is so self-centered and uptight that his personality is just downright irritating. I mean, sure, he has a pretty good motive to commit these evil acts, wanting to save his dying wife and daughter, but oh wait, he goes crazy and forgets everything that made him tolerable and becomes a complete and total jerk. I mean, come on. I get that we're not supposed to like him, but this guy's personality is worse than Jasper Bat Jr.'s. No! No! Seriously, what kind of person just shoots 2 children, especially when he knows that at least one of them is completely innocent? Thankfully you survived, but did he think you would? No, sir. He just committed murder to a child and didn't even seem fazed by it, which I think is pretty weird considering that his own daughter is dying. Later in life, Lucian kills your best friend, your dog, and then shoots you a second time, thinking he's killed you again! And then, of course, there's the final battle, if you can call it that.
I mean, my heart's beating, my hands are shaking, but I'm still shooting, I'm still getting the headshots. It's like, boom, headshot, boom, headshot, boom, headshot!
God, I can't take it anymore. Give me the next good villain, now!
Thou art a villain.
Hell yeah, Ridley is awesome! A high-ranking member of the Space Pirates, murderer of Samus Aran's parents, and her eternal nemesis, Ridley's role as a villain is actually rather unique. He's not out to conquer the world or even destroy it. He's just a thug, ready to stop Samus at every turn. He's been present in almost every game in the franchise, and each time he appears, we as gamers get a huge surge of adrenaline. Alright, let's blast this beast in the face one more time! Malevolent and frightening, Ridley's appearance, tactics, and battles just scream awesome. Now, just because of his size, don't go thinking he's just some brute. No, he's got plenty of strategy to back up that brawn. For example, during the Meta Ridley battle in Metroid Prime. During his second phase, he gets a new strategy by attacking on the ground and therefore blocking his weak point. Speaking of battles, they are awesome! They're atmospheric like in Metroid Prime, stunning to watch like in Metroid Prime 2, challenging like in Super Metroid, and can even be very unnerving like in Metroid Fusion and Metroid Other M. Also, Ridley's battle theme is just fantastic. It captures his conniving personality perfectly, and even adapts to his different forms such as Meta Ridley. Oh, and did I mention that he never dies? I mean, sure, most recurring villains don't die either, but Ridley has been riddled with missiles, plasma, and dozens of other weapons throughout his countless encounters with Samus, and he still manages to come back every time. Oh my. That's how you make a good villain. But now, the honorable and dishonorable mentions. So far on this list, I've gone over characters that were unoriginal, put up a poor fight, were annoying, or just downright hateable. But at least they could all be considered villains. The number one spot is held by a villain so horrible that it fails as a villain, as a character, and as a boss fight. Ladies and gentlemen, King DDD! I hate King DDD with such a passion that there was no way he couldn't be the worst. Let's start with his personality. This guy is the most greedy and selfish character I have ever seen, even outclassing Moneybags. Seriously, the entire plot of Kirby's Dream Land is that he steals all the food in the world and, just for spite, the sparkling stars as well. Then in Kirby 64, he steals one of the crystal shards for no other reason than to keep Kirby from having it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Greed.
Let's move on to his actions. King DDD should not even be classified as an antagonist. Most of the time, he does things just because he's bored and wants to prove that he's better than Kirby. So, how does he do it? By challenging to eat more food than him. Well, how else would you prove your superiority over someone? I don't know, this sounds reasonable to me. The only times he even acts like a villain are when he's being possessed by dark matter or yin-yang. But in those cases, DDD is not the true villain, the possessor is. Also, in Kirby 64, Return to Dreamland, and Subspace Emissary, he actually turns out to be a good guy and helps you. I mean, what the hell? Look, this has worked for some villains, like Bowser for example. He fought alongside Mario in order to defeat an even greater evil. But it was more of an enemy of my enemy thing rather than just, hey Mario, I don't think I want to be evil anymore. Let's be the best of buddies and sing Kumbaya. But that's still not the worst part about King DDD. No sir. There's still the boss fights with him. While some fights such as Mass DDD can be fun, that doesn't excuse how easy they are. Sure, it's Kirby, but that doesn't excuse having taken more damage over the years from Wispy Woods than from King DDD. You see, a good villain has to be evil, not DDD, conniving, not DDD, have a good motive, not DDD, execute a well-thought-out plan, not DDD, and put up a good fight, definitely not DDD. The self-proclaimed King of Dreamland fails in every aspect of a villain, and that is why I think he is the worst villain in video game history. Now, before I give myself an aneurysm, let's move on. On this list, I talked about villains that had great battles, likable personalities, ingenious plans and motives, and were just plain awesome. But there is a villain that demonstrates these qualities even better than any of the ones previously mentioned. A lot of you probably won't agree with me, but that doesn't change the fact that I think this person, or rather, these people, are the greatest villains in video game history, and possibly in all media. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Plasma. Like I said, a lot of you probably don't agree with me, but at least give me a chance to explain why I think Team Plasma is such a great villain. Let's start with their motives. The vision of Team Plasma is that Pokémon should be freed from the slavery of their masters. Pokémon are free spirits just as humans, and we have no right to use living beings as tools. Just think about that for a second. It actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, in the Pokemon anime, they fleshed out that the Pokemon are more than just weapons, but if you played the games, you didn't know that. All you knew is that you wanted to level up your Wartortle to take on the next gym leader. That's incredibly well thought out and deep for any game, especially Pokemon of all things. Next, let's look at their tactics. Like Kefka and Girahim, Team Plasma don't go about their business using brute force. Most of the time, Ghetsis will appear in a town and he will speak to the public about the ideals of Team Plasma. As a matter of fact, Ghetsis is such a good speaker that he even convinced me that this was unjust. It's like that feeling you got playing Shadow of the Colossus. You just can't help but feel that what you're doing is wrong, but at the same time, you don't know what else you can do. It just feels like you're being strung along for the entire game with this concept. Also, as you all know, Team Plasma is home to two of my favorite characters ever, N and Ghetsis. Yes, I actually like Ghetsis. A lot of you may hate him as a villain, but you can't deny that he's very memorable. Lastly, the battles. On top of the very fun and memorable battles throughout the game, the final battle with both N and Ghetsis at the end of the game makes for one of my favorite final battles of all time. And that music is just awe-inspiring. In short, Team Plasma is awesome. They have extremely well thought out motives and plans, the members themselves have interesting personalities, their tactics are unique and very effective, and the battles with them are epic. By far, the greatest villain in video game history. In fact, Team Plasma is such a great villain that they've inspired me to go out and do greater things. Catch you on the flip side. Almost forgot my DS.